The wine glass trembled slightly in my hand as my phone buzzed again, another notification lighting up the screen. Instagram. For a second, I ignored it. I was used to endless scrolls of filtered happiness.
But then I saw it, a tag.
A familiar face. My brother, Daniel. Smiling wide, champagne in hand. His arm around a woman in a silver dress. The caption read, "She said yes. Ring so excited to spend forever with you, my love." My chest tightened. Confusion first. Then disbelief. Then that sharp, familiar sting of exclusion. I looked across the living room. My husband, Aaron, sitting comfortably on the couch, TV remote in hand, eyes pretending not to notice my silence. "Aaron," I asked softly, "did you know Daniel was getting engaged?" He didn't flinch. Just a shrug. "Yeah, I think they planned something small, it's just a get-together. Nothing major. Just a get-together." The words hit harder than they should have. I could almost hear my heartbeat over the hum of the TV. The silk sleeve of my blouse clung to my skin, suddenly too tight, too polished for the truth I was swallowing. I smiled faintly, trying to sound unaffected. A get-together with 100 guests and matching outfits? He didn't answer. And for the first time in a long while, I realized I wasn't hurt because I wasn't invited. I was hurt because someone wanted me not to be. I wasn't always the woman who smiled through silence. Once, I was the loud one, the dreamer, the one who believed love could fix anything. For years ago, when I told my family I was marrying Aaron, I thought they'd be happy. I was 25, in love, and foolish enough to believe approval was automatic when your heart was sincere. But my father's expression had been cold that evening. "Lena, you barely know him," he'd said, setting down his coffee mug with that quiet finality only parents have. My mother tried to soften it, touching my shoulder. "Sweetheart, he seems different. Are you sure he's the one?" Daniel, my brother, stayed silent. I remember looking at him for support, the same brother who once fought off bullies for me, who made me pancakes when I failed my exams. But he wouldn't meet my eyes. I married Aaron anyway. Against everyone's advice, against their cold stares, against my own whispering doubts. For a while, it was beautiful. The laughter, the cozy dinners, the way he'd tuck my hair behind my ear and call me his calm. But calm slowly turned into control. He didn't yell. He didn't hit. He just decided. For both of us. What to wear. Who to meet. What to post. The first time my family invited us for dinner, he claimed to be too tired. The next few times, he said it was better to keep some space. And then came the silence. The kind that stretches for months until you stop realizing it's there. One winter night, after an argument, I found myself packing a small bag, not to leave, but to breathe. I sat by the window, my fingers trembling as I opened the drawer and found it, a tiny gold locket my grandmother had given me when I turned 18. Inside it, her note, written in fading ink. "When people try to make you smaller, that's when you must grow." Those words became my anchor. The next morning, I walked into our apartment kitchen, looked Aaron straight in the eye, and said quietly, "I'm not giving up on myself anymore." He smiled, dismissive. "You'll come around, Lena. You always do." But that time, I didn't. That day marked the start of something neither of us could see coming, not even me. The day I decided not to give up on myself, nothing magical happened. No music swelled. No one clapped. Aaron went to work. I cleaned the kitchen. The same sun rose. But something inside me had shifted, quietly but permanently. I started small. Freelancing. Writing blog posts for marketing companies. Designing social media content. The first time I earned $50, I sat in front of my laptop, staring at the payment confirmation like it was a miracle. Because it was my miracle. Aaron barely noticed. He was too busy networking, attending business dinners, and scrolling through his phone with that smug detachment I'd learned to recognize as boredom. So I let him believe my little projects were hobbies. I posted pictures of coffee cups and home decor, keeping my captions light, harmless. Behind the scenes, I was building something real. My mentor came into my life by accident, or maybe fate. Her name was Margaret Reed, the CEO of a small lifestyle brand who'd read one of my design articles and reached out. "Your work has voice," she said over Zoom one afternoon. I could use that kind of voice in my company. She became my compass. Margaret was in her 50s, sharp, kind, and unapologetically ambitious. She taught me to price my time, to negotiate, to stop apologizing before speaking. "You've got fire, Lena," she'd tell me. "You just keep it too quiet." Under her guidance, I went from freelancer to consultant, from consultant to creative director. And then, one bold leap later, I launched my own boutique digital agency, Nova Line Studio. The first year was brutal. Nights blurred into dawns. I'd fall asleep at my desk, the soft glow of my laptop lighting the room while Aaron snored in the next one. He'd joke about my little online projects. Sometimes he'd smile and say, "It's cute that you're keeping yourself busy." I never corrected him. Let him underestimate me. His underestimation was my armor. Then came my first big client, a luxury home brand in Seattle. When the campaign went viral, I didn't tell anyone, not even Aaron. I just smiled to myself as I transferred my first five-figure paycheck into my separate account. By the second year, Nova Line had 6 employees, international clients, and a quiet reputation for excellence. I moved the business to a sleek office downtown, all glass and sunlight. My name wasn't on the door. Only the company's, simple, clean, anonymous. I still called my parents sometimes. The conversations were polite but distant. They'd ask, "Are you and Aaron doing well?" And I'd say, "We're fine," because that was easier than explaining the truth, that I was thriving and he was fading. On social media, I kept my life minimal, no luxury, no bragging. Just enough to look ordinary. Because success, I'd learned, doesn't need to scream. It just waits quietly for the right moment to be seen. A week after seeing the engagement post, I still couldn't shake the unease. Aaron had gone about his days like nothing happened, humming while he shaved, texting between meetings, calling it all overthinking. But my intuition, that soft, persistent voice I'd ignored for too many years, wouldn't quiet down. The morning of the get-together, he said it casually while adjusting his tie. "Daniel's having something small tonight. Don't stress, babe. It's just close family and a few friends. No need to dress up." Close family. I almost laughed. After he left, I sat by the window, watching the gray Seattle sky blur into rain. Every drop against the glass felt like a reminder of every lie I'd swallowed to keep the peace. By evening, something in me decided, enough. I changed into a long navy dress, simple, elegant, the kind that whispered confidence instead of shouting it. I slipped on my grandmother's gold locket and looked at myself in the mirror. The woman staring back wasn't fragile anymore. She looked like someone who'd built something worth protecting. When I arrived at the venue, I knew instantly, this wasn't a small event. It was a full-blown engagement party. Crystal lights, champagne towers, photographers. And there, at the center of it all, my brother and his fiancée, beaming beneath a chandelier. Conversations paused as I walked in. Whispers followed. Then, like a slow ripple, heads turned one by one. Aaron froze near the bar, a glass in his hand. His face drained of color. "Lena?" Daniel's voice cracked slightly, surprise coating his words. "You came." "Of course," I said gently, my lips curving into a soft smile. "It's family, isn't it? I wouldn't miss it." The tension was almost visible, thick as fog. Aaron rushed toward me, voice low. "I told you it was just a get-together." I finished for him, my tone light. "Yes, I remember." I glanced around the hall. The branding on the event backdrop caught my eye, Nova Line Studio. My company's logo. Daniel noticed my reaction. "Oh, right," he said. "This amazing team organized everything." The event planner said the creative agency was fantastic. I smiled wider. "I'm glad you liked their work." Aaron's eyes widened. He understood before anyone else did. "Wait," he whispered. "You didn't." "I did," I said quietly. "Nova Line. My company. I'm the founder." For a moment, time held its breath. Even the music seemed to falter. My parents stood nearby, confusion flickering into realization. My mother's hand went to her chest. My father's expression softened in disbelief. Daniel took a hesitant step forward. You built this. I nodded. From scratch. While you all thought I was just keeping myself busy. A silence settled. Not awkward, but odd. It was the sound of people recalculating everything they thought they knew about you. Aaron finally spoke, his voice trembling slightly. You should have told me. I met his eyes, calm and unwavering. You should have invited me. My brother exhaled, stepping closer. Lena, I held up a hand, gentle but firm. It's okay, Daniel. Tonight's your moment. Celebrate it. Then, after a beat, I added, but I'm glad I came. I almost believed the lie. I walked to the bar, ordered a glass of sparkling water, and looked around at the people who had once pitied me, dismissed me, excluded me. Now they couldn't even meet my eyes. I didn't need to prove anything anymore. The truth had done that for me. As I stood beneath the chandelier, the light caught my locket, golden, steady. And for the first time in years, I felt completely seen. The party ended slowly that night. Music softened into murmurs. Laughter turned into whispers. By the time the last champagne glass clinked, people were already glancing at me differently, some curious, others cautious. Aaron didn't say much on the drive home. The silence between us wasn't awkward anymore. It was honest. That's the thing about truth. Once it's out, it changes the air you breathe. When we reached home, he finally spoke. You embarrass me tonight, he said flatly. I turned to face him, calm, hands folded in my lap.
No, Aaron.
I just stopped hiding. He scoffed, shaking his head. You think success changes everything? I smiled faintly.
No.
But it changes me, and that's enough. For a long moment, he had no answer. The next morning, I found him sitting at the dining table, scrolling through articles on his phone. One headline read, "The Hidden Woman Behind Nova Line Studios' Rise." He looked up, guilt flickering in his eyes. You're trending. I poured myself coffee. Guess it's not so little anymore. He exhaled. I don't want to lose you, Lena. And this time, the arrogance was gone. I met his gaze, steady but soft. You won't if you learn to stand beside me, not in front of me. No more hiding me from family. No more pretending my success makes you smaller. He nodded slowly, unsure, but trying. It was the first honest thing I'd seen in him in years. A few days later, Daniel called. His voice was hesitant, layered with shame. Lena, I should have invited you. I don't know what I was thinking. I let the silence stretch before I replied. You were protecting someone else's comfort, not mine. I know, he whispered, but I want to make it right. I thought for a moment. Then I said, You're starting a real estate firm, right? Yes, small, but I'm trying. I'll invest, I said, but under one condition. You hire based on integrity, not family favors. Build something honest this time. His voice cracked. You'd really do that? Yes, I said softly. Because I still believe in you, Daniel. I just stopped waiting for you to believe in me first. That evening my parents called too. My mother's voice trembled. We're proud of you, sweetheart. We just didn't understand. I know, I said gently. But from now on, understanding comes before judgment. That's all I ask. Each conversation that week felt like rearranging old furniture, heavy but necessary. I wasn't seeking revenge. I was rebuilding respect. Aaron started showing up differently, bringing coffee to my office, listening instead of correcting. He was clumsy with effort, but it was a start. For once, people didn't see me as someone's wife or daughter or sister. They saw me, Lena Moore, the woman who turned silence into strategy and doubt into drive. Power didn't mean dominance anymore. It meant choice. And for the first time, I was the one setting the terms. Spring came quietly that year. The cherry blossoms outside my office window bloomed early, soft pink clouds against the glass. I watched them sway while my team laughed in the background, planning our next campaign launch. Sometimes, I'd catch myself smiling for no reason. Not the practice smiles I used to wear, real ones. The kind that come from peace, not pretense. It had been 3 months since the engagement night. Daniel visited often now. Sometimes with coffee, sometimes just to talk. He'd ask for advice on a startup, and I'd see in his eyes the same warmth he used to have when we were kids, before opinions and pride had built walls between us. My parents came by too. They never apologized in words, not really, but in gestures. Dad fixed a shelf in my office. Mom brought me her old recipe books. Sometimes love doesn't say sorry. It just shows up and stays. And Aaron, well, he was learning. He still stumbled. Pride doesn't vanish overnight, but he listened now. He showed up to my company events. He introduced me as his wife, the founder of Nova Line, not just Lena. Maybe people do change when you stop shrinking yourself to make them comfortable. One quiet Sunday morning, I found myself alone at my desk, sorting through old keepsakes. That's when I saw it. My grandmother's gold locket. The hinge was worn, the engraving faint, but the note inside was still there. When people try to make you smaller, that's when you must grow. I traced the words with my thumb and closed my eyes. In that moment, everything, the pain, the distance, the silence, felt like pieces of a larger design. Every no had been a nudge. Every betrayal had been a blueprint. I stood by the window, watching the city skyline, the same city that once scared me, now shining with the life I built myself. Voice steady, I whispered to the reflection in the glass. I once thought being left out meant I didn't matter. But now I know, sometimes you have to be excluded to find where you truly belong. I smiled then, a quiet, certain smile. Because he had been right, in a way. Aaron, with his careless words that night. It was just a get-together. Only, it was the one where I finally showed up, as myself.